Many, probably 50 to 75 of you over the past 2 weeks have sent me an email, etc., about this case in Georgia of a missing attorney. And I got to tell you that I have kept pace with it every day. And it's an unusual case. And the incident involves a man, a brilliant man, named Charles Hosch, 67 years old, missing November 11th, 2025, 6'1", 200. And he went missing on the Byron Herbert Reese Trail on Blood Mountain in Georgia. He's married, 2 grown daughters, and I couldn't believe it when I read it. He's an Eagle Scout. Just lately, I can't believe how many Eagle Scouts have gone missing. It's bizarre. And I came across this picture and I said, you know what? I like this guy more every minute. Just one of his social media posts was him and his dog. He was raised in Gainesville. He had been to the area where he disappeared for years and years, decades, since he was a youth. He was a founder of a Dallas law firm called Hosch and Morris. And he was an adjunct professor at Southern Methodist School of Law for decades. He'd been married 42 years. That's success. Last seen wearing khaki pants, camel-colored sweater, dark green coat. That hurts. A dark green coat in this environment hurts a lot. And why, Dave? It's because this area is so green. And camel-colored sweater, that hurts. Khaki-colored pants, that hurts. Hurts to search. Now, Charles also was a Sunday school teacher at his local church. This is his bio on his own law firm's website. And I'm going to read it to you because I want you to appreciate how complex this man is. He's had 40 years of experience in complex business transactions and litigation. He handles all aspects of data and technology, including development, analysis, use, licensing, and global outsourcing, etc. That right there is a lot. He has a long history of protecting trade secrets, and he has extensive experience in software development agreements while representing both sides of that spectrum. Now, as someone who worked in software development for a long time, I can tell you that we used attorneys all the time. And they were all over the map. Some were great, some not so good. Some we actually seemed to be training while they worked for us. It is a strange dynamic. He's handled business lawsuits throughout his career. Since '91, has been a mediator on business disputes. And for the past 30 years has dedicated himself to helping upcoming and new attorneys while continually teaching at the Dedman School of Law at SMU University. Let me tell you something. Nobody teaches as an adjunct professor for the money. Nope. He's doing that because he's trying to help the community, help the attorneys that are coming up through the pipeline and getting trained appropriately. And some of you may think it's for prestige, etc. It's not. It's not. I was an adjunct professor at USF for a number of years on the human resources side. A lot of people don't know that. But, yeah. His education was, he graduated from Harvard Law School in 1983, and he graduated from Harvard College in 1980. Smart man. He had admissions to practice law in the U.S. District Court of Texas and the U.S. Court of Appeals. From 2020 to 2024, he's named one of the best lawyers in Dallas for digital info. He was a fellow for the Texas Bar Association. And he was listed as one of the best lawyers in America for IP and litigation 2018-2019. Named to the Texas Super Lawyers 2003 to 2004, 2007, and 2023 to 2024. And this is the one that really caught my attention. He was part of an Eagle Scout committee for the Circle 10 Council of Boy Scouts in Texas. I'm not sure, but we might be breaking ground on a new subgroup of missing people, Eagle Scouts. Seems like this last year I've bumped into more stories of Eagle Scouts disappearing. You couple that with intellect, which Charles definitely fits, and you've definitely caught my attention. So he went missing on Bald Mountain in northern Georgia. It's the tallest mountain on the Georgia stretch of the Appalachian Trail. Now stop there. The Appalachian Trail. A longtime follower knows I have covered several cases of people who have disappeared on the Appalachian Trail. It's one of Georgia's most popular hiking trails, Blood Mountain. And there's several trails around, up, down, and along the sides of the mountain. Now, the Byron Reese Trail at Neal's Gap is a 1.35 mile round trip, and the sites include mossy streams and fern-filled trailheads, etc. Now, there's also a Byron Reese Trail and the Appalachian Trail to the Blood Mountain summit. That's 4.3 miles round trip, probably the most popular and the direct route, with the trail very well marked. Now, why is that important? If the trail is very well marked, it's hard to get lost. It's extremely popular, well marked, and maintained. Now, at the summit of that trail, on the top of Blood Mountain, there's actually a protection hut that's built by a trail association in Georgia. One of the things that caught my attention is that's kind of a strange name for a mountain, Blood Mountain. How did it get its name? Well, there was a battle in the 1700s between two Native American tribes. One was the Cherokee, and different sites said different things for the second tribe. One of the most common ones, it was the Cherokees against the Creeks. The mountain's located almost halfway between Atlanta and Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Gatlinburg. Look up Gather Up events. Gather Up, one word, events. And look up, just scroll down on the events segment, and we have an upcoming event there in Gatlinburg. I am not listed there, but I will be there. I'm going to be taking Dr. Meldrum's spot, unfortunately. God rest his soul. And by the way, in the last week, I've had many people talk to me about Dr. Meldrum. One of the most well-liked people in that community. A gentleman, highly missed, and I want to tell his family that a lot of people love that guy. And Mrs. Meldrum, the boys, if you're watching, I want you to know your dad and your father and your husband were loved. Back to this story. Missing on Blood Mountain. During the research on this story, I found several places where his daughter had talked to different individuals, made some appearances on some shows, just pounding away trying to get help to find her dad. She's doing the perfect thing. She said that her dad was someone who liked to drive, and he made cross-country trips. And he was on a trip when he went to Blood Mountain. It was all planned. He actually was near the end of the trip and had just finished visiting his older brother named Hayward. And he continually kept in touch with his family, told them where he was on his trip, what his next stop would be, etc. Which is what you should be doing when you're going cross-country, stopping at various locations. Let people know where you're at, what you're doing. Well, after seeing his brother, he told his family that he was going to make a stop and hike Blood Mountain in Georgia. He had been to this mountain for decades. He grew up in Gainesville. He went to this place as a youth. He told his family that he didn't intend to make it a lengthy trip, but he wanted to hike it. He parked his car at the Byron Herbert Reese Trailhead on November 11th. He headed out along the trail, and he told his family that he didn't expect to be a long duration hike. Well, subsequent investigation showed that at about 1:30 in the afternoon, he was on the summit of the mountain. He actually conversed with some individuals at the top. It was cordial, polite. They actually made a note that he wasn't wearing hiking shoes. And his family said that would have been something he would have done. And they saw him descend from the summit like he was going to walk downhill towards the trailhead. There were no other sightings and no other communication with the family. And there has been no other people along the trail that said that they saw him. Now, what search and rescue people have stated continually, if you were on Blood Mountain on November 11th, please contact the Union County Sheriff's Office, the one doing the search and rescue. The reason being is that they're trying to come up with pictures, a location where he was last seen on the trail, what his behavior might have been like, etc. Well, the family had not heard from him. They said it wasn't supposed to be a long hike. Late on November 11th, they called law enforcement and asked them to check the trailhead for his vehicle. They did, and they found it there. Nothing unusual in the car, nothing disturbed, nothing broken. Just looked like he parked it there and left. An ominous sign for the family, no doubt. Here's a map. Knoxville, Tennessee, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This is the trailhead in Georgia. This is Atlanta. It's almost halfway between Gatlinburg and Atlanta. This is very lush area, thick. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, lush, thick, just like this. Very thick. So, November 12th, the Union County Sheriff's Office in Georgia, along with the Union County Fire Chief, organized a search and rescue. I've told you repeatedly that when you're in these rural areas, it's very hard to get a big response and advanced technology to do searches. This area is pretty remote, and Union County still did a pretty good job getting upwards of 60, 70, 80, even 90 people on some days into that area. Charles's daughter, Julia, was one of those people that left almost immediately for the search and rescue headquarters and stayed on scene. Good for her. She stated on a show that Charles's sudden failure to check in once he supposedly reached the car was highly unusual. Well, it does appear like he didn't reach the car. But the question comes in, what happened and where did it happen? We know he was last seen at the summit, but could he have walked up to his car and something happened? Union County put drones in the sky around Blood Mountain, and multiple canine teams were put on the trails along with ground pounders. The area was described by search and rescue members as very lush, heavy forest cover, and rocky slopes. Hold your taters. That heavy forest cover is not good for drones. Drones usually stay up 100 to 200 feet, scanning the area, depending if it's a FLIR drone or standard drone. There's now software that will analyze drone footage to see if maybe the operator who was looking at the screen missed a body on the ground, etc. They didn't say what kind of drones they were using. Don't know. Now, the timeline for the events is November 12th, the search and rescue starts. Now, at the start, they're all expecting that Charles is going to be found sprained ankle, broken ankle, something wrong on the trail, immediately off the trail. They send in an emergency team and they evacuate him. Unfortunately, that wasn't happening. As with every search and rescue, the first thing to do is to hike up the trail, keep your eyes around the trail around you, and make sure he's not injured somewhere on that trail. And they usually start from the point last seen, which would have been the summit. From that point, they start scanning outwards. Outwards meaning anywhere from 2 to 4 miles. It's never been stated what Charles's athletic condition is like, medical condition was like, or mental health condition was like. I looked, I could not find anything. I'm not saying that's bad or good. If as long as search and rescue and the sheriff knows, that's the most important thing. If the family doesn't want to put it out to people, I get it. Well, on the 12th through the 16th of November, Union County kept up the search and rescue, and organizational tactics of canines and drones were still being used, along with ground pounders. The press put out a major press release on November 18th about a break in the case. It said that canines, multiple, had a scent hit. SAR team members were reassigned into those areas, and they swarmed it with ground pounders, canines, and drones. They never identified the area. They never said if it was scent sniffing canines or cadaveric canines. But that was on November 18th. We're now into December, and nothing's happened. Nothing has reportedly been found. There's never been a report of any piece of clothing found. So that was on November 18th. November 20th, authorities put out the following statement. This is a peculiar statement too. Authorities put out they were limiting access to hikers and drones to preserve scent trails. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, Blood Mountain should have been closed while this search was going on, and no recreational hikers should be on that mountain at all. Not sure why it wasn't, if it wasn't. What's peculiar is that they said that they were restricting access to drones to preserve scent trails. They said it in the same sentence. That dog doesn't hunt. Drones are high up in the air, and they have these little tiny propellers on them that put out a little bit of wind that keeps them elevated. I can tell you they will not have an effect of any scent trail on the ground. So why they are restricting that doesn't make any sense to me. Just saying. November 22nd, the search continued with a focus on ground operations. At that point, they'd been into the search for 10 full days. Now, 10 days of searching these days is a good long search. Nowadays, we're seeing a 5-day normal to 7-day max. 10 days is probably because there were a lot of people pushing to find Charles. His law firm was there, his family was there, and what I've told you before, if you're not pounding that drum, if you're not in their ear saying, you want to find your dad, you want to find your partner, and demanding more resources, you're not going to get them. This family did the right thing. And after November 22nd, Search and Rescue put out something I usually do not see in searches. They said they're trying to resolve several issues that in their minds are unresolved. They're trying to understand the complete sequence of Charles's descent from the summit. Obviously important because he was last seen on the summit. So some issue happened between the summit and the car, right? And they're trying to understand if there were any stops or deviations in that descent. Well, I'm just saying that there had to be a deviation on the descent, otherwise they would have found him on the trail, right? And they were trying to locate any potential trail cam footage. As an area that is probably hunted extensively, hunters put up trail cameras to see if there's any potential deer in that area. As of today, I hadn't heard of any trail cam footage coming forward. I'd be surprised if there wasn't trail cams up in that area. Trail cams are usually off trail looking for game. Knowing that Charles is not on the trail, the footage would have been important. They're also trying to determine whether descending or ascending the terrain caused him disorientation. There's never been any information from Search and Rescue or the family that he had ever been disoriented, ever had dementia, etc. So that kind of threw me a little bit. But what's more peculiar to me is that he had been on this mountain probably hundreds of times in decades since he was a youth. So the idea that he was lost seems very hard unless he had some kind of dementia maybe. Or he was sick, injured. His daughter stated on a show that it's unclear what happened to him on the trail. Absolutely, it's unclear. November 24th, Union County officially suspended their portion of the search operations, and they pulled out, and the fire chief pulled out. But the family had planned for this, and they launched a website, and the website is bringcharleshome.com. And they had already contacted private searchers to come in. And they brought in a new search and rescue commander, 2 new dog teams brought to the scene, more and new volunteers targeted specific areas of Blood Mountain. So if they're targeting new areas of Blood Mountain, implying that they weren't searched in the past, that would be probably a smart thing to do. They also stated on November 28th that they were bringing in new analytical tools. That wasn't explained. Drone ops were up again, they stated, and the request made for more canine teams to the public. That's unusual. So there are several very credible private search and rescue teams out there. Some are expensive, some are completely volunteer, And they have had success in the past. On November 29th, they stated that a new nonprofit SAR team was on site. That's good. Now, obviously, Charles had assets. I would probably have brought on, if I had the assets, a private search and rescue team. It would have cost some money, but I think they would have done a very, very thorough assessment and analysis of what had been done and what more could be done. Since they never mentioned who that nonprofit team was that they brought on, I can't make any comments about it. Don't know. So let's review this for a second. And this is important. Charles was a very smart man who knew that area intimately. He was described by people who worked for him and had taken his classes that he was a very caring person who liked to get to know clients and friends. And this was amazing to me. They stated that Charles's way of getting to know someone would be to ask them, "Would you please tell me your life story?" And then he would intently listen. How many people in his position as a partner in a major law firm would do that? Not many. But that really shows the intellect and the caring behind the person. The students declared that he was an exceptional teacher, attorney, and outdoor enthusiast. Now, all the other sites out there are going by the hashtag Bring Charles Home. So, Charles knew Blood Mountain very well. If he had a sudden medical issue while on the trail, he would have already been located on the trail or adjacent to the trail, because those have all been searched multiple times. I had a question for the family. Was he the type of hiker that would have wandered off trail? It sounds very doubtful because he wasn't wearing hiking boots, just normal street shoes. So going off trail doesn't make any sense. There was also never a mention of a cell phone being pinged or used for triangulation. That could be because there's so few towers out there. I'm not sure, but they never mentioned it. So let's just state the obvious. He's off trail. The question is, how far off trail? His family could help with that by saying, did he exercise regularly? Did he hike every day? Did he run? I have no idea because it was never stated. So how far someone could go off trail is dependent upon their condition. There's no mention of mental health state or any possible medical issues anywhere. Point last seen is the summit of Blood Mountain at 1:30 p.m. November 11th. The location of where the canines had that scent hit has never been identified, which is an important point. How many dogs had the hit? Julia, the daughter, is doing a fantastic job trying to bring her dad home. And we need to pray for her. Now, obviously, the best thing would have been if Charles would have had a personal locator beacon or would have had one built into his phone because, as I've stated many times, cell phones all have that now, all Apple cell phones. And you should become familiar with it if you have one of those phones. And I'm not real familiar with phones outside of Apple, but I would check on it. And it's a $300 added purchase if you get a personal locator beacon. So by getting an Apple phone, you're saving that amount of money at least. I'm not a big Apple advocate. I do have an Apple phone, I will say that. I just got a new one within the last several days. And I will say this, that I went into Best Buy to look at Apple phones. And I brought in my phone. I said, hey, how long would it take for you guys to transfer the data on the phone? And they said, oh, we got to go through the iCloud. And then we've got to transfer that data from the cloud to our bank. And then we've got to transfer it back on. And it could take anywhere from 6 to 9 hours. This was like the head person at Best Buy. So when I was doing the premiere in Tacoma, I went into the Tacoma Apple store and I asked him how long would it take to transfer the data. He looks at the phone, he looks at the amount of data on my phone, he goes, 30 minutes. I go, could you do it now? Yeah, right now. I was in and out of the Apple store transferring all of my data to an Apple phone in less than an hour. That will tell you something about Apple's ability with their phones. I was stunned. Anyhow, enough Apple. But I do like their phones. So, they never said what kind of phone Charles had, whether it was pinged, if it went dead, when it went dead, all things of concern. The recommendation I would make to his family, get professionals in there, number one, or there's 2 private search organizations that I would call in. I'm not sure why they're not naming the search team that's involved. I don't understand the rationale for that. But you are important. And I met a lot of you at the Tacoma premiere. Wow, just super nice people. All of you guys were great. And I love meeting all of you. Thank you. If you know of a missing person, let me know. Missing411@yahoo.com. I want to know. I can't figure out everyone who's missing all over the world. There's just no way. And a lot of these stories are just kept very local. Charles's case went national because of who he was. I hope you guys have a good holiday season. Be safe. Be kind. Remember, I have a 20-segment class right here on my YouTube channel on Bigfoot. You need to take it. Paulides out.